A year from today, you're gonna be in a meaningfully different place than you are right now. The question is which direction most people don't decide. They just keep doing whatever they've been doing, and the year drifts them somewhere, usually somewhere similar to where they started or slightly further, along the same path that wasn't quite working. And here's the truth: the shape of the next year of your life is determined by a small number of decisions you'll make deliberately or by not big dramatic decisions, small decisions about how you spend your evenings, how you respond to drama, how you treat the people around you, how you handle these small, uncomfortable moments that come up dozens of times a week. Each decision is teeny. Cumulatively, they reshape your life. You see, most people focus on the big decisions and ignore the small ones. They think the big carer, move, the big relationship change, the big purchase. Usually, what shapes the big decisions get made under set by the session. The small decisions made the small decisions made consistently for a year are what priority, the columns under which the right big decisions become possible today. I want to walk you through 10 of those small decisions, none of them too dramatic, life changes, none of them more time, more money, or more talent than you already have. All of them are choices you can make today and then keep making every time the relevant situation erases over a year. The cumulative effect of all 10 produce a life that the no decision version of you couldn't have built. By the end of this, you will have a clear list, 10 small decisions, each one starting today, and the year ahead becomes the year your life finally moves. Not because anything dramatic happened, but because you finally chose deliberately in the small moments for 12 moves in a row. Now, before we get into the 10, you must understand what living without making these small decisions has been costing you, because most people don't see the cost. They don't make these decisions, so they don't know what they're missing. The cost is invisible. It shows up as the absence of things that would have been there if you'd been deciding. Here's the truth. When you don't make the small decisions, they get made for you by your habits, by your environment, by the people around you, by whatever pattern was running before you would have intervened. And the pattern that runs without your intervention is usually the pattern that's been producing the life you're not satisfied with. So letting it continue by failing to make the small decision is choosing to keep producing the same life. You see, every small situation in your life has a death out. If you respond to it, the relationships in your life will stay shallow. If you don't deepen when the conversations, life will stay shallow. If you don't deepen when the conversation, if you don't drop the performance, the hard calls will stay unmade. If you don't make them, the deft is the no decision out. And the no decision out come over a year is essentially the same year you had last year. But here's what most people don't see. The small decisions are where your agency actually lives. The big decisions happen every day. Dozens of them. You don't decide. You've every day dozens of them, and every time you decide, you've decided to keep running the deft. By the end of a year, you've made tens of thousands of no decisions, each of which kept some small pattern in place. The patterns that should have shifted did because you never intervened at the moment they could have shifted. You must take this seriously, because the version of you who finally starts making the small decisions deliberately in 12 moves produce a life that the no decision version of you literally couldn't produce in a decade every single day. The patterns that took root because you didn't decide are the patterns that have been organized in life, interrupting them with deliberate. Saying the small moments is what actually changes. 10 decisions each one, specific each one. A variable to you in situations that arise. Multiple times a week. Today 10 of them. By the end you'll know exactly which choices you've been making. By def, and you'll know exactly what to choose instead starting tomorrow in the next dozen small situations that come up. Number 1. You must decide today to stop responding to drama you didn't create. Because most people are getting pulled into drama daily that has nothing to do with their actual life, family. Complex. They got dragged into work disputes. They have no stake in social tensions among people they barely know. The pulling in feels involuntary. It isn't theirs a decision point each time. And most people aren't making it consciously, you see. Drama recruits. It always has somebody else's conflict present to you, asks you to take a side to why and to respond. And the social pressure to respond is real. You don't want to seem cold. You don't want to seem like you don't care. You cannot let this continue. So you get pulled in despise by despise, and your weekly emotional energy is eaten by other people's situation you didn't create, is not yours to solve. Most of the time, your involvement does not help. It just adds another voice to a situation that already had too many voices. Your withdrawal, on the other hand, models a quieter way of being that often de-escalates the situation while protecting your own energy for the things that actually matter to you. The fix is to encode a deft response when somebody brings you drama you didn't create. You listen, Brian, to take a start. You don't have to be cold. You can say that sounds hard. Energy you've reclaimed from other people's drama is enormous. You have bandwidth for your own life. You have space for your own work. You have presence for the people who actually need you, and the drama around you settles down a little because you're no longer feeding it with your attentions. Next, decide to pap one simple filter to every spending choice. Would your future self in 10 years from now respect this purchase? Not prove of it, respect it. Look back at it and think, yes, that was a reasonable you, the present self, given who I was becoming. You see, most spending decisions are made by your present self with no from any other version of you. The present self wants what feels good now. The present self has a limited patience. The present self does not always think about consequences and the spending pattern that is the pattern your present self alone would create, which is rarely the pattern that produces the life you actually want. Here's the truth. The future self filter changes a lot of decisions. Not all a lot of decisions from purchase are still going to be present self purchase. Coffee and evening out. A small trait, that's fine. But the larger purchase, the upgrades, the impulse, the lifestyle inflations, these are the owns where the future self filter produce different answers than the present. Def, you must inclestal the question before any spending decision above a certain should pick your number. Maybe 200. You ask yourself, would my 10-year future self respect this? Not in detail, just briefly. The question takes 10 sessions. The answer over time reshapes your entire financial life. What you'll find is that some success clearly and some are borderline, in which case you do some purchases. Sauce has the test. Acely, you delay the decision for a day or two and see if the desire holds over a year. The cumulative effect of running this filter is a substantially different bank account with substantially fewer impulse purchases and a substantially better relationship between your spending and the life you're actually trying to build. The filter is simple, the discipline is small, the research over A year is the kind of financial trajectory that the no-filter version of you couldn't have produced. In 5, next you gotta decide. Which one relationship in your life you're going to invest in deeply this year? Just one, not your family specific person. Partner, friend, sibling. One specific person, partner, sibling, parent-wose relationship. You'll deepen and tend to over the next 12 moves. You see, most adults maintain a wide social network with no real investment. In any one piece of it, they have 100 acquaintances and 10 friends, and they touch each of them lightly, and none of the relationships actually deepen. I am telling you, the breath feels like richness as it produces a kind of relational poverty, lots of contact, not much depth, no one specifically near. Here's the truth: depth comes from investment, and investment repures focus. You can invest deeply in 10 people simultaneously. You can in 2 or 3 at most, and usually the best practice is to pick one relationship per year and put extra energy into deepening that specific one while maintaining the others at their crank level. The fix is to pick the question: which relationship in my life would benefit most from a year of more deliberate investment? Often the answer is somebody you've been close to, but haven't truly tended in years: a parent, an old friend, a sibling, daddy, woos. Relationship has been on autopilot when it could have been so much more. You must, for the year, make decisions in favor of that relationship you call. When you wouldn't have called, you show up. When you do solidly align, you ask the deeper questions, you stay through the harder conversations. Over a year, the relationship has deepened in ways that surprise you both. But here's the gift: the deepening onstabilished lasts for decades. Even when the focused year is over, pick the person tonight, make the first move. Tomorrow, the year is long enough to reshape the relationship completely if you actually invest. Most people never pick. You can be different. Next, you have to decide to stop performing in conversations and just be present, because most adults in most conversations are not actually in the conversation. They are performing a version of themselves, the witty version, the smart version, the impressive version, while the actual conversation happens somewhere outside the performance. You see, the performing is exhausting. It takes mental energy that could have gone into actually listening. It takes attention that could have been on the other person, and it produces conversations that feel hollow. 'Cause nobody's really being themselves. They're being the version of themselves they think they should be. In this kingst, here's the truth I am telling you. The conversations that actually nourish you are the owns where you stop performing, where you say the outward thing, where you admitted you didn't know, where you let the silence sit, where you were just there as yourself with another person who was also just there as themselves. Those conversations are rare in adult life, and they are the owns that produce the relationships that matter. The decision made deliberately and run for a year is to drop the performance in as many conversations as possible. The first attempts will feel word. You'll feel exposed. You'll worry about how you're coming across. Stay with the discomfort. The conversations on the other side of dropping the performance are the owns you've been quietly missing your whole adult life. You must keep coming back to. You won't drop it perfectly. Some conversations still pull you into performance mode, and that's fine, but every time you nurture, you can choose to come back. Over a year, your conversations happen more, and the people you change. The shallow owns happen less, the real owns happen more, and the people you spend time with are people who were also looking for real conversation, who finally, when you stop it performing the decision, is small. The Cumulative effect on your social life. After 12 moves is enormous next. Decide that whenever you're trying to figure something out, a problem, a decision, a tangle of feelings, you write it down instead of just thinking about it. You cannot solve real problems in your head alone, because thinking by itself runs in circles. Writing breaks the circles, and the act of putting your situation into words on paper is what produces the clarity that pure thinking almost produce. You see, most adults try to solve problems in their head. They think about the MCU, they turn it over, they run the same considerations through their mind again and again, hoping the answer will come. You cannot expect it to. It doesn't, because the mind is good at noticing things, but bad at organizing them. The organizing happens through the act of writing, which force secant constructure and language will instruction previously. A loop. Here's the truth. 10 minutes of writing about a problem produces more clarity than 10 hours of thinking about it, because the writing makes you choose specific words, which forces specific framings, which surface things that the lows are thinking, which surface that the lowers are thinking would have skipped over. The writing externalizes the problem so you can see it from outside instead of be inside it. Inside, the decision is to encastle the practice. Anytime you're stuck on something, a decision, an emotion, a relationship, you grab a notebook or open a dime minutes, not journaling in the daily sense problem, writing in the tracted sense about the specific thing you're trying to figure out. Every single day of running this practice, you have written your way through dozens of situations. Each one becomes clearer for the writing, and cumulatively, you become somebody who solves problems instead of somebody who circles them. The capabilities. Once tool is permanent, the decision was small. The petties it produced is enormous. Next, you gotta decide to leave social gatherings before they get stale, because most people stay too long in the middle of the gathering, and then the conversations get repetitive. The interesting people first, the remaining time is spent in the diminishing return phase, and then you go home exhausted, having spent twice as much energy as the gathering was actually worth. You see, the social convention is to stay. Leaving early feels rude. Leaving when the energy is still good feels strange, like you're missing out on the climax. So most people stay until the energy is bad, and then they leave, and they take the bad energy home with them, which conquers the next day. Here's the truth. The best move is to leave when the gathering is still good before the deadline. You take the energy with you instead of having it drained. You see, better the next day is better, and paradoxically, the people you spent time with remember the gathering more positively, because you left while it was still alive instead of close to its deadline. The decision is to instill or until signal. When you start to notice the energy begin getting to fade, you don't wait for somebody else to start leaving. You don't wait for the obvious exit cue. You make your own exit while the gathering is still good. Polite goodbye. The first few times it will feel slightly transgressive. People will notice, some will mention it. You have to not worry about it. Third time your friend, you have to not worry about it. By the third or fourth time your friends know you leave a little early, you stay sharp. You're somebody whose energy is brought over. A year you have been to dozens of gatherings without ever crashing afterward. The energy you've protect has gone into the things that actually matter. Next, you must decide to be the first one to address tension or discomfort in any room. The person who names what others are avoiding, the person who asks the question nobody else is asking, the person what's actually going On this is one of the most transformative single decisions. A developing adult can make you say most. Have tension family. Dinners, work, meetings, social gather, conversation. Two people, there's almost always something not being said. A frustration, a question, a discomfort, an obvious exio that everyone is pretending not to notice, and most people, most of the time, choose to maintain the pretense to not address it, to not be the one who breaks the silence. Let me tell you about a man I once knew. He was in his early 40s, confident, smart, well-liked, quietly stuck. He had been at the same level previous in his relationships, while pleasant, had a salmonness that suggested they weren't really growing. We spoke about it, and one of the things we discovered in the course of our conversation was that he was uniformly avoiding tension in every room he entered. When something needed to be addressed, he waited for somebody else to address it. Usually nobody did. The tension stayed, the conversation stayed surface, the relationships stayed pleasant but shallow. I asked him to try something for a year. In every room where he noticed tension, he was going to be the first one to name it, not aggressively, gently, with curiosity, something like, there seems to be something going on here that we're not talking about. Is that worth addressing? Or I note we keep coming back to this. Can we look at it directly? The phrasing varied. The move was the same. Be the one who breaks the avoidance the first few times. It terrified him. He felt rude. He felt presumptuous. He felt like he was overstepping. He did it anyway because he had admitted to trying. And what he was that the rooms changed, the tension on name almost always dissolved or got stressed. People relaxed. The conversations got real. The relationships started moving in ways they hadn't moved for years. At work, the same happened everywhere. The same thing happened. The meetings where he had been the quiet, confident one became meetings where he was the one who said what others were thinking. He noticed himself being listened to in a way he hadn't been listened to before. He noticed being leaked in conversations he had previously been left out of a year. And he told me the single decision changed everything. Vocal. Because I became more aggressive. Who would name what others were avoiding. People treat that person differently. They bring you their hard things because they know you will. Language. They listen to you in important moments because they know you'll say what needs to be said. You became the person people brought hard conversations to, which made you the person who got listened to when it mattered. His carer moved that year. His relationships deepened, and none of it was because he had developed new skills. It was because he had made one decision, sustained for 12 moves, to be the first one to name. What was in the decision was moldy rumum. He was effect on his life was enormous. Next, you have to decide that every Sunday evening you make one phone call. You have been avoiding just one, the hard call, the one that's been sitting on your list for weeks, the one with the difficult person, the unresolved issue, the conversation you've been postponing because it would nickel something of you that the easier calls don't. You see, most adults accumulate a backlog of unmet hard calls. The relative they should reach out to. They need to follow up with the friend they've been ducking, the doctor's office they haven't called. The dispute call on its own is small. The accumulated weight of unmet hard calls is enormous, and it sits in the back of your life, taking up mental space, generating a low grade unis that never quite goes away. Here's the truth. The Sunday evening decision is the practice that clears the backlog. One call per week, 52 per year. By the end of the year, you have 52 Things that had been quietly weighing on you, the cumulative relief is substantial, and the practice of making hard calls becomes easier with repetition until it stops being a special thing and starts being a normal capcase. You have to keep it simple. Each Sunday evening you look at your list. You pick one hard call. You make it. You do not rehearse for an hour. You do not put it off for a few more days. You make it now while you have committed to making it. If they don't pick up, you leave a message. The point is the action, not the perfect outcome. Over a year, you'll have a disgressed 52 things that were avoiding you. Many of them will be easier than you feared. Some will be harder than you expect. All of them will be off your list finally. And the version of you who handles hard calls weekly instead of avoiding them indefinitely is somebody whose life has notably less drag on it, less than it did a year ago. Next, decide that you read for 30 minutes before bed every night instead of watching entertainment, because the last of your day shapes your sleep, your dreams, and the first thoughts of the next morning. And the difference between ending the day with a book and ending it with passive entertainment is enormous. Accumulated over a year, you see most adults end their day with the most low effort, a variable television, radio, mindless watching, the brain, endless having been fed something that produced nothing, no learning, no reflection, no quiet, no building of any capacities. And then sleep happens in that state, which is why so many adults wake feeling like they haven't really rested. Here's the truth. 30 minutes of reading before bed changes the entire shape of the evening and the night. The brain has been fed something with structure and language. The transition to sleep is calmer. The morning starts in a different mental state. In over a year, the cumulative effect is 1 in 80 hours of reading. You wouldn't have done other substantial books, multiple subjects, intellectual nourishment. You gotta insult the swap. Whatever you've been doing in the last hour before bed gets replaced in part with 30 minutes of reading. You can still watch in part with 30 minutes of reading, but the final will 30 minutes before sleep go to a book, any book, fiction, non-fiction, biography, philosophy, whatever you want. The Kennedy matters less than the consistency within a move of this practice. You'll notice your sleep is different within 3 moves. Your morning state is different within a year. You'll have read 15 or 20 books that the no decision version of you would never have read, and from those books slowly, quietly will have changed who you are in ways you didn't anticipate when you started. This decision is one of the cheapest in this whole list. 30 minutes every night, no cost, substantial return, and the practice aunts inst lasts the rest of your life. Next, you must decide that every single move you ask one specific question of one person was ahead of you in doing some way that matters. A mentor, a wizard friend, somebody you respect. One question specific and fully chosen and ask on some move. Every move for the next year. You see, most adults stop asking questions of after a certain age. They feel they should know. They should know things already. They don't want to look ignorant, so they figure things out on their own, slowly, sometimes wrong. And meanwhile, sometimes somebody they see weekly has the answer, would freely share it, but is never asked. Here's the truth. The right question asked of the right person can save you moves or years of figuring out something yourself. And the right people are usually willing to answer. They remember when they were where you are. They're flattered to be asked the question. Cost you nothing but a moment of feeling vulnerable. The answer can change the trajectory of whatever you're working on. You have to incastle the movely question. The first of every move you pick one person and one question. The question is specific, not What should I with my carer? But how did you? Decide between option X and option Y. When you were at the stage specific and know that the answer can actually help, not so vague that the answer is a platitude. You gotta send the what a message by phone call whatever fits the relationship. Most people will answer thoughtful answers. The accumulated wisdom is substantial. I am telling you, the relationships with these mentor figures will have deepen. They remember the people. Good questions. The decision was small. The compound effect on your professional and personal trajectory is enormous. So here is what I want you to carry with you: 10 small decisions. Each one a variable, dramatic life. Changes, all of them run consistently for 12 moves. Reshape your life in ways that no decision version. Move your Lufchen. Of you cold enough produce it. In 5 years, stop responding to drama. You didn't create, spend money in ways your future Felfen would respect. Invest deeply in one relationship. Stop performing in conversations. Write down what you're trying to figure out. Leave gatherings before they get stale. Be the first one to address tension. Make one hard call every Sunday. Even mask. Read 30 minutes before bed. Ask one specific question of one mentor. Figure each move. You must pick 3 to start. The 3 that hittest. When you heard them, you must install those 3. 2 more by the end of 2 moves. That integration moves you've got 6 running by the end of 3 moves. All 10 the integration. Edual uxto no starts the moment you start running them. Here's the truth. The year ahead of you is going to be shaped by something. Either by the small decisions you make deliberately, or by the smalls you let run because you didn't intervene every single day. The shaping is happening. Regardless, the only question is the one doing the shaping. I am telling you, this is one of the most underrated upgrades available to adults. Most people will spend the next year roughly as they spent the last one. The owns who don't make these small decisions deliberately, day after day, prots a year that doesn't anything like the year they would have had on. If settings, you can be one of those people starting tomorrow with 3 of the 10 decisions every single day. Matters the first day. Will not feel like much the second day. Will not feel like much by move 3. You'll start to notice things changing by move 6. The changes will be undeniable by 12. Move. You'll be in a meaningfully different life than the one you're living right now. The decisions are small. The shaping is yours to do it starting tomorrow with 3 decisions chosen tonight. And then keep doing it every day for the 12 moves that follow.